People have this theory that the more people you add, the less you will have to work. But I've seen the exact opposite, that the more people you hire, the more you typically have to work. It all starts with a great product. Without a great product, you can't do this, right? So it needs to be a product that has an easy to use interface, a great UX, shouldn't have any bugs. If you enable the customers to do everything, then you have a really good excuse to push back on them to do it.
In today's episode, my guest is Esben Friis-Jensen. He's the founder of Userflow, a 3-person bootstrapped in-app onboarding product and survey tool without using any code. They grew to 4.6 million ARR, have been acquired in February 2024 by Beamer, which is creating an all-in growth toolkit. Before Userflow, I started Cobalt, which is a VC-backed company with 37 million in funding with over 200 employees. So he basically seen all aspects growing a startup. VC-backed, bootstrapping, and getting acquired. In this episode, we're going to talk about his journey as a founder, his learnings, his mistakes along the way. Welcome to the show, Esben.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Cheers. I'm gonna fire off a couple questions right away, so to get to know you and the company a little bit. Who is Esben?
So I'm a Danish person, so I'm from Denmark originally. Basically lived my childhood in Copenhagen. And also went to university there, got my first job there at a consultancy, Accenture, one of the big IT consultancies, and were there for 3 years and found out that corporate life was a bit too boring for me and I wanted to do startups instead. Luckily, I found a colleague in Accenture who had the same ambition, and we decided to build Cobalt, which was the first company. And then I did that for 7 to 8 years, left that operationally, and then co-founded Userflow afterwards. You can say I'm an entrepreneur and have done 2 companies. That's really on the professional side. On the more personal side, I'm a father of a 1-year-old kid, and we are digital nomads. So we travel around, mostly in the US. We're based in the US, but travel around in different states and exploring the beautiful country.
Nice. And how old are you?
I'm 39, getting close to the big 4. So you can say I got late into the startup game when Cobalt started. So Cobalt is now 10 years. So that was done in 11 years, 2013. So I was around 28 at that time. So pretty late to the startup game compared to some of the people I, for instance, met in Silicon Valley when I got here.
Nice. But I think when you look at the stats, your best startup days are when you're in the 40s, right? So I think you have good times ahead.
We'll see.
You started 2 companies, you have a little kid. Like, what keeps you motivated to keep going and to keep growing businesses?
So one, I love the whole technology space, right? And I love that you can build software that solves problems in an efficient and fast way. That's really my passion. Is ever since I was a little kid, I played with computers and loved how you could do things smarter, better, faster with technology. So that's really why I'm in it, like why I'm in technology is because of that, and really about building software that customers love, customers get value from. That's really what I find amazing and what drives me to continue to build companies.
Yeah, well, we're going to dive deeper into that because I'm really intrigued by 4.6 million ARR with only 3 people. So we're going to get to that. First of all, like, how did you came up with the idea of Userflow?
So it was actually my co-founder, Sebastian, who came up with the idea. He was building another company called Studio One, which was basically an early version of the click-through demo platforms that we've seen become very popular the last couple of years. But he was a bit early to the market. But as part of building that tool, he had built a product tour. So inside his product, he's built his own like in-app guide. And his customers were much more interested in how he had built that guide within the product. And because he had developed it himself, he started looking at that market and said, okay, what exists in the market today? And he went out to try a couple of tools and he found them very unintuitive. So he decided I can do that better. And he made a pivot. And that's where he then invited me to join him on the journey. So yeah, it was really based on customer feedback on another product.
Love it. So you fixed his own problem, then people loved it, and then went from there.
Exactly.
And You, before Userflow, you did a VC backed route, right? This time you went for fully bootstrapping. Why?
Yeah. So I think what I learned with Cobalt, with Cobalt, we were four Danish guys who co-founded that company, including my colleague and his brother's friend. When we did that, we were first-time entrepreneurs. And the kind of natural journey was you go out, you build a MVP, you go to an accelerator, which is what we did. So we applied for an accelerator program. And then from that point on, you raise your angel round, you raise your seed round, you raise your A round. It was just like, that's the natural kind of path for a technology startup. What I learned over the years with Cobalt was that's a very long journey. The VC-backed journey is basically setting yourself up for becoming a public company, right? So it's all about building a big organization and so forth. And you don't have a lot of optionality in that kind of company, to be honest. So when I wanted to do my second company, I wanted to, one, make it a lot smaller because I felt there was too much operational overhead when you hired a lot of people. And secondly, we wanted to be bootstrapped to have more optionality over our future. So for instance, being able to get acquired as we ended up being, it was one of the options we had, which would have been a lot harder with a VC-backed company. So I think those two things, really, no pressure to unnecessarily grow the organization, and two, the optionality was really the two key things that made us decide to bootstrap instead of raise VC capital.
I love it. And when did you actually start Userflow?
It was started in late 2019.
Yeah, so within 5 years, you were able to go from launch to acquisition.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the great thing about my co-founder Sebastian is he built a successful accounting software as a service company before, so he knew a lot of the baseline software as a service stuff, and that really accelerated how fast we could build product, basically. So that was great.
Yeah. And for you, did it help that you had the VC backed route before where you maybe did some learnings and now you can implement it yourself?
You can say I knew a lot about like how you build a go-to-market function, how you can automate certain parts of your go-to-market model. I think I had also learned that what you shouldn't do, don't get human involvement, don't get too high touch, because the more high touch you get, the more manual processes you add, the more work you actually need to do. Try to automate as much as possible and push the customers to do self-service. It will save you a ton of time at scale. So those kind of learnings was something I applied to Userflow. I would also say a second learning was that we at Cobalt, when we started, we were four Danish guys coming to the Silicon Valley, not knowing anybody, and we were like pitching it's a cybersecurity platform that basically allows you to do penetration testing on demand. And it was really novel and cool. And we were like pitching it to everyone, but people were not listening. But then we hired upcoming superstar in the security world, Caroline Wong, who became a thought leader and advocate for Cobalt. And that accelerated our growth tremendously, combined with hiring a great VP of marketing. So for me, that was a lesson learned that grind can get you far. Like you can grind your way to a lot of customers, but what can really accelerate growth is going out there, being a thought leader in your space and spreading the word. So that's, given I had the background now from Cobalt, I could be that person for Userflow. So that's what I did, basically spend a lot of time on spreading the word, what one would call thought leadership or social selling.
Yeah. Similar now, being on podcasts and being
it's all part of the game, right? I think the fantastic thing about it is you still need to be authentic. So I don't do it just to get the marketing attention. I actually love discussing things. I love sharing the stories. I love having strong opinions about certain topics and inspiring others. So it's like a win situation that you go out and have the possibility to be authentic about the message you want to spread, really.
Yeah. I'm going to drill down a bit because 3 employees, like that still baffles me a little bit, because you mentioned like you try to automate as much as possible, which I understand. I think everybody tries to do it, right? But at 4.6 million ARR, still with 3 people, plus doing thought leadership, so going out, going on podcasts, going on events, speaking, things like that. How? One word, how?
So number one, it all starts with a great product. Without a great product, you can't do this, right? So it needs to be a product that has an easy to use interface, a great UX. shouldn't have any bugs, this kind of stuff. That's what really slows you down if you have a buggy product with a bad UX, right? So that's number one, is really having a great product. And then on top of that, what we've done is build a lot of like other things. We have a free trial, so advocating for self-service, so people can sign up, try the product, they can buy self-service. So everything is pushing towards self-service, right? The customer should really be able to do everything themselves without having to involve a human from Userflow. So that's been a big part of it. And then building these like product-led growth processes, like for instance, in-app onboarding, email onboarding, automated CRM orchestration, connecting with ChartMogul to get the metrics in an automated way, using Stripe for all your billing so you don't have like manual invoices floating around. It's all part of that game, like building a really strong product-led growth and self-service setup around a great product.
Yeah. I'm going to ask more questions regarding this. A lot of companies probably do this, right? We have a good product. We're not fully self-serve, like with everything yet. We work on onboarding, but still, like you have companies who have certain requests. People want to jump on calls with you. Maybe when you're going to work with enterprises, you need to fill out these vendor forms. Like at one point, there has to be one more employee, right? Or like, how do you still keep it so low?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. So one, if you enable the customers to do everything, then you have a really good excuse to push back on them to do it. I think what many customers end up doing is they use humans as a stopgap solution, right? And as soon as you involve a human for a stopgap solution, then you will start getting more and more human involvement, and it will not scale eventually. Because we make everything available self-service, we can push a lot back on the customers to actually go and explore self-service. So let's say somebody, for instance, request a demo. What we often do there is that we share a video demo, and we also have a video demo on our website. So we make it very easy to see a demo without having to jump on a call. If somebody reaches out on our support and their first request is, can we jump on a call because this is difficult to explain? We always push back and say, can you try to explain it in text? And if too difficult to explain, please explain it in a Loom or Loom video or similar, right? So always push back on the customer to not always take the easy way out of jumping on the call, because the more you do that, the more and more you create the anticipation with the customers that it needs to be a call every time a problem needs to be solved. So it's really about creating that kind of culture with your customers that this is a self-service product and you should expect to self-serve, and we will provide great support, but it's going to be to a large extent asynchronous. And then you mentioned the enterprise customers. So what we did, and I think that's a clever move for many businesses who want to be more self-service, is we have 3 plans. We have Startup, Pro, and Enterprise. And Enterprise is 3x the Pro price, but it comes with all the same features. But the only difference is if you want paperwork like a contract or security questionnaire, you need to buy Enterprise. So that forces a lot of these like not truly enterprises to buy the Pro plan instead. So they won't come with their security questionnaires and all that stuff and act like they're an enterprise. And what we do then is, again, make everything available, right? So it's not, because we can push back on that, is because we have all our security policies are online. So you can just go and find them, read the answers and get the answers for your security questionnaire. We also SOC 2 Type 2, so you can get that report. So again, we make everything available self-service. So there's really no excuse to do all this like manual custom stuff. But if you still want to do that, then buy our enterprise plan and pay more.
Love it. There's a really good things in here. If you make everything available, then there's no need to have that call. As you mentioned, like these questionnaires are a complete hassle. Like we're now going through the first ones ourselves, and they all have the same questions. A lot of them are irrelevant. So if you provide the information and you put a big price on there, they can just fill it out themselves if they need to.
Exactly. And then I highly recommend for any SaaS business. I know it's a big expenditure, but SOC 2 Type 2 will make your life so much easier. And with platforms like Vanta, Drata, SecureFrame, and so on, it's so easy today.
Are you struggling to find a cost-effective and scalable marketing channel? Check out Redditis. We help you to have other people recommend your SaaS, and you would only pay them when they deliver you paid clients, making it a very cost-effective and scalable marketing channel. Want to learn more? Go go to getreadytest.com. To go back to the support questions, because you mentioned you don't jump on calls, have them ask them for a Loom in the early stage. Did you do this as well? Because in the early stage, you probably want to get a lot of feedback. You want to talk to clients.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. In the beginning, in the very early phases, you are much more high touch, right? You will jump on calls a lot more. You will do more demos. You won't push back on doing demos. So in the beginning, yes, you are more high touch, but I think you should always not make the general expectation that you're going to be high touch. Try to make the communication flow through intercom. So through the support channel or whatever tool you use, right? Don't try to end up in a lot of like manual emails, individual emails. Always try to make the single channel of communication the support channel, really. So even though you are higher touch in the beginning, still have this like already from that point on, build the natural flow that communication should really be done via the support channels.
Yeah, don't open up WhatsApp, Slack, things like that.
Yeah, I think as you bring in new people, you always have to remind them, the more you open up for answering their questions on individual emails or whatever, the more you become a bottleneck. So it's always better be a bit tough once. Say what I do typically if I get a support question on my personal email is I do give them the answer, but then I also write and make it very clear, please use support going forward for questions like this, right? And it's that constant pushback to the customers that you need to be a bit tough on, to be honest, to build a very efficient organization.
It's interesting though, because it's still the same person most likely, because there's only 3, right? So in the end, it's still the same person, but at least you have everything in one channel, so somebody can pick it up, whoever has the shift at that time.
Exactly, and being 3 is better than being 1, right? And I think it allows you to easier scale the team in the long run, because then all communication flows through that channel. So let's say now we got acquired by Beamer. We just have to add in the support team on the support tool. Then we know all the communication is going to flow into that. We don't need to start redirecting people who are writing me to write support. So I think if you always think about it like that, it makes it a lot easier to one, scale your team if that's your ultimate goal.
Yeah, you make things less reliable on yourself, as mentioned.
Exactly.
Let's zoom out a little bit again. So we talk about your founder journey. Like every founder hits rock bottom one day, either like financially, personally. Could you share a moment of your rock bottom moment?
It's the funny thing about being an entrepreneur is it's a long grind. As I said, I started Cobalt 11 years ago. It's been a very long journey, right? And you have you have ups and downs, but you're really, as an entrepreneur, you're just in it. So you don't really it's not everything is crap or everything is amazing. You just keep going. You actually often forget to celebrate the successes because you're just, that was natural. Let's move to the next step. And so it becomes the same with the failures as you just, okay, we learned from that. Let's move on. So I'm not I haven't had situations where I was deep rock bottom, but I would say 2 situations I can mention is definitely one was with Cobalt. In the early stages, we were actually doing a slightly different product called bug bounty programs where you invite the entire world to test your application and then you pay them bounties. And we were not seeing a lot of product market fit with that product, and we were not growing. And we were running out of money, and we were really close to, I think we were at that point, maybe 12 employees, including the founder. So we were about to say, okay, do we need to let go of the team? And then we made a really good decision to pivot and try something new and move towards this more structured pen testing. And that saved us in the end. We had maybe 2 to 3 months where we were what are we actually going to do? We're running out of money. We're not growing. We are not able to raise capital. So what should we do? Should we just end the journey or let go of some people? So that was, of course, not fun. But I think in hindsight, when I look back at it, I think we were way too focused on the VC game. And why were we so worried that we couldn't raise money? We should have thought about it in a completely different way. We should have said, how do we generate more revenue? And maybe we should have let go of the team because we had too many, even though that's a tough decision. But yeah, that was definitely not a fun moment. And then you can say deciding to leave Cobalt was also partially because I was a bit tired of being in a larger organization. So you can say that was more me learning that I'm much better fit to be in a smaller organization where I can move fast, iterate quickly, and in a large organization that just becomes harder and harder. So that was a key part of me deciding to move back to the startup roots and do Userflow.
And how did you actually leave Cobalt?
So I think we had grown. We were a Series B company at that point, and the founder's role were becoming less and less. We had a management team. When I left, we were around getting close to 200 employees. So there was less of a need for us. And for me, who likes to be very hands-on things and so on, it was not a kind of world that I thrived in, I think. That's why I decided to leave. But because we had scaled to a good situation with an independent management team and so on, it was easier for me to leave without it causing any harm or anything to the company. So I could just leave operationally, and the company is still going strong, and we'll see where they go. But I left it operationally to do Userflow, basically.
Yeah. So you're still part of the company, just not on a daily basis.
Exactly.
If we look at Userflow, maybe, like, what has been the biggest company challenge you had so far during the growth journey?
So Userflow has been a really amazing journey. So I'm a bit spoiled. We've just been growing, and we kept growing even during the recession here, or semi-recession, whatever you want to call it, that we've had the last year. So it's really been a spoiled situation where we just have kept growing. For some reason, we hit the right market at the right time and with the right product, and have continued to grow with minimal involvement. So I wouldn't say we've really hit any major challenges, to be honest. It's a very spoiled situation.
Okay, let's dive into spoiled situation. So minimum involvement, thought leadership. What else have you been doing? Go-to-market strategy. What has been, like, what can we learn from you? How can we be spoiled maybe as well?
From an acquisition standpoint, besides from thought leadership, word of mouth is of course big because we have a great product, but also we use search engine marketing, and some people are very much against Google ads. You can't get value from that. But in our space, where it's a very competitive market, people search for the right terms. It's been a fantastic tool from an acquisition standpoint, and the predictable tool, right, where thought leadership and SEO is much harder to control and predict, then SEM is really easy to control and predict. So that's been a great tool for us. And then the whole product-led growth go-to-market approach, where everything is like product-led and self-service, free trial, in-app onboarding, email onboarding, auto renewal, online terms, in-app payment. So really like building that super lean product-led model. And a big part of that is the onboarding piece. And luckily we're a tool that does onboarding, right? So we really know how it works. And we of course use Userflow and Userflow to build our onboarding. So that's meta. So we're dog fooding our own product and learning from that, which is great. So that also is how we can maintain a great UX. But two, we also built really great product-led onboarding with Userflow. And that's what really drives the users to the aha moment, so they end up buying. So those are like key things. And then I think the third thing is we've been really good at pricing. And that is maybe also something I learned from Cobalt. Is when we started Cobalt, we sold pen tests for $1,000. But what we learned was consultancies were selling them for $20,000, the equivalent. So that was like a big learning for me. Okay, wow, we really sold ourselves cheap. So today I think Cobalt's price is around the 15,000. So still not fully on the consultant level, but it's at least closer and a lot more expensive. And I think that's something we learned early on in Userflow, is that if you have a valuable product, you shouldn't be afraid to increase your pricing. And you should look at the market and see what others are charging for an equivalent product and charge something similar. If you're the cheapest product, then one, people will look at you as a budget tool, and two, you're missing out on revenue. So every year, sometimes twice a year, we've been reviewing our pricing and typically increased it. And what we do to not piss off old customers is we always allow people to grandfather on their legacy plan, and only if they want to then get some new feature that we decide to only add in the new plans, then they need to change plans.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because then you can still have the option to upgrade them based on the features you add. And
Yeah.
I have to ask, but that's probably automated as well. You probably have in-app exactly where they can just upgrade themselves to the
Yeah,
new
and
account.
we have auto upgrades. So a part of Userflow's pricing model is also usage-based, which is becoming more popular in the world now. So we have the base subscriptions, but then we also charge for monthly active users. So as you grow your monthly active users, which brings you more value, more people needs to get onboarded, supported, then we auto upgrade basically when you do that. So you grow, the subscription goes with your business, you can say. And that's not manual upgrades, it's all done automatically. So that whole strategy around always being good at increasing pricing and also having usage-based pricing is really something that has helped Userflow a lot. And I think I saw a great post actually from Nick, the founder of Chatmogul, the other day and I was a bit insulted because he wrote like something like, hiring an expensive Scandinavian design team won't change much, but changing an integer on your pricing will. And he's so right. Like pricing is an underestimated way to change the revenue of your business. And I know you likely have a lot of European listeners here. And I think Europeans are the absolute worst at pricing. They price themselves too low. They seem like budget tools because they do that. And in the US, people are much better at valuing their product at the right price.
Yeah, it's a really fair point. I think we even do it ourselves as well. We doubled or tripled our prices a month back, but still we're way cheaper than our competitors.
Yeah.
For people listening, we actually had a session with Walter Reberg from Unium where we dived into pricing. He mentioned like you have to have packaging right. It's not about the pricing, but as you mentioned, like enterprise has a certain package. You put certain things in there, 3 extra price, and that's like the perfect example of package something towards a certain IC or a certain client type.
Yeah, and keep it simple, right? Like I often see people like making super complex pricing. Don't do that. Like it needs to be easy to understand, simple, limit how many packages you do to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the original question because I think a lot of people have issues with go-to-market or at least like scaling. You mentioned like paid ads has been a big thing for you. If we draw it down, has that been or is that like the biggest acquisition channel for you right now? Because we understand like you have a good product, good onboarding
It's
flow.
maybe 30%. It's the channel we know where it's coming from. And then the big unknown is like SEO, word of mouth. That's the rest. So it's really hard to say, is it the biggest? Maybe it is the biggest, but it's hard to distinguish word of mouth from SEO and thought leadership. So that's really how do you assess that? But it's definitely a big part of our acquisition.
Yeah. Another question, I guess, like you're so processed, well, not processed, like you have everything out there, right? Like people can find all the answers themselves. Would you recommend any processes, frameworks, things for people to read, check out if they want to do something similar?
It's about one, make your documentation available online, right? That's one. I think Basecamp, who I'm, by the way, a big admirer of 37 Signals, they have online. It's actually where we got our policies from in the beginning because they have open source templates for terms and stuff like that. So they are a great source for finding inspiration for your policies. So it's really about being as transparent as possible with both security terms and documentation. But we actually at Userflow, we have a feature where you can search in knowledge bases. And I'm still seeing a lot of even product-led companies hiding their knowledge base behind a log. And it's because they're afraid of competitors. And to be honest, competitors, they will find out anyway, right? So don't waste too much time on that. Make it easy for your customers, be transparent, and then you can also grow your SEO by having documentation available online. Some of our best SEO is actually our security policies. People search for that. So that's funny. But yeah, I think it's about being as transparent as you can, make it as easy to find policies, terms, security policies, etc.
Yeah.
Pricing.
Of it, I will add a link toward Camp where people can find the policies templates.
Yeah.
It sounds like everything was, I don't want to say perfect. I don't know if that's the right word, but things were progressing really nice. Is there something you regret you didn't do looking back now?
Now that we're bringing on additional resources on the Beamer side, I think both Sebastian and I are learning. Maybe it could have actually been nice with that additional support person in the team who could have handled part of the support. So we didn't have to do all the support. And maybe it could have been great with an additional developer to help with some of the development stuff. But I think it would also have created additional overhead for us to manage those people. And what we are forgetting is now in Beamer, we're not the managers of those people, right? It's somebody else managing them. So we're forgetting that there is a management part to that we wouldn't have liked. But it is definitely something we like afterwards said, okay, maybe it could have actually been good to have a bit extra hands. But the potential overhead it would have added would also have maybe not been so nice. So yeah, I don't know. But other than that, I don't really regret anything. I think the fantastic thing about Userflow is that we could have kept expanding the product use cases. And that's what Beamer is going to do with Userflow, is that they are going to look at like, how can we expand to additional use cases? This whole product-led growth and onboarding space is so big, and you can do a lot more stuff than we have done so far.
Nice. Just a random question, like how much did you guys work before getting acquired by Beamer? Because it still baffles me a little bit.
So it's not like we worked more than 40 hours a week. We worked that kind of time. So really tried to keep it flexible. I worked a lot more in Cobalt than I did with Userflow. And I think it's because with a team of just 3 people, you don't have meetings, silly meetings like recurring meetings. You do everything asynchronous. You just Slack each other and you trust each other to do the right thing. And I also, by reducing the number of demos, I also reduced the workload I had because I didn't have to sit on a lot of demos. So it's really been minimal workload because we've automated so much, because we've forced the customers to do self-service, and because we didn't hire people, which would have added overhead, the need for potential meetings and so on. So I think people have this theory that the more people you add, the less you will have to work. But I've seen the exact opposite, that the more people you hire, the more you typically have to work. It's not a sliding scale.
Exactly, because in the end, you need to manage them. You need to make sure that they can actually, that they know what to do, have meetings, and that in the end, it just compounds. Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of a hype trend question. Like, how do you currently, for example, leverage technologies like AI, machine learning? Is that something you currently use?
So at Userflow, we were really fast to adopt GPT-4. So we made a feature like right after they released GPT-4, actually, even before we had started looking at it. We launched an AI assistant, so similar to, some people know, Intercom's Fin. We were actually, before they launched, we launched Userflow's AI assistant, which is basically able to connect with your knowledge base and website and answer support questions. And that's been amazing. We use it ourselves, and we sell it as a feature to our customers, and it's amazing. It can answer with such high quality. It took maybe 6 months to get the knowledge base updated in a way so it would consistently answer correctly. But now it's perfect. It's really about getting that feedback loop between the AI assistant and the knowledge base to be working well. So that's been another efficiency we've done with AI, and again, dog fooding our own product. But yeah, it's great. I often see these posts online that people hate chatbots, but I think it's because they are thinking about the old chatbots. The new GPT-4 powered stuff is out of this world if you instruct it correctly.
Yeah, because in the end, you feed the information from the help center, so you need to make sure the knowledge base, you need to make sure that it's correct. There's a lot of information in there, so we can answer the questions however you like.
And exactly, and you have limited tokens, so it's about structuring your knowledge base in a way where it will find the right answer in as fast as possible, so you don't have to spend a lot of money to find the answer, basically. So yeah, no, but AI has been amazing for us, both as a feature in the product, but also for ourselves in reducing our support load. So that's a place where we've really used AI, and I can see more use cases in the future for sure.
Yeah, nice. We're going to go to the final 2 questions of this podcast. So I always ask this at the end, like, what kind of advice would you give somebody who's just starting out and growing to 10K monthly recurring revenue?
I think at that stage, it's all about finding customers, getting like those initial customers on board and getting paying customers, especially now I'm speaking mostly for the B2B space, which I'm the space that I live in. But instead of chasing VC capital, chase customers, chase paying customers. That's where you will get the real feedback. So I think that's really, I see a lot of founders go wrong in that regard, that they chase VC capital, but they should really be chasing the first paying customers and get MR and feedback from those. And the way to do that is really, in the beginning, it's all about grinding, getting connected to potential customers and getting them to try the product and so on. And then also opening up the floodgates by having something like a free trial, for instance, so people can also just find you and try it out, the people you are not able to connect with. I think a lot of people are afraid to open up and keep things behind a wait list for too long. So it's really about opening up the floodgates, but also grinding a bit to get those early customers and get them to pay.
I love it. When we go beyond 10K MOR, and this is going to be a huge step, I know, but if we're going to go towards 10 million ARR, what kind of advice would you give SaaS founders here?
10 million ARR, that's where you should start making your processes more scalable, right? That's where I would advocate for building really strong self-service and product-led growth processes into your company. And I think a common mistake when you're growing towards 10 million ARR is you think everything is about hiring more people, which is wrong. It's not about hiring more people. It's about like, how can we adjust the product? How can we adjust our marketing model? How can we adjust the pricing to grow more revenue? I think that's the most common mistake I see when people are growing towards 10 million ARR, is they just hire more and more people, because that's the idea. The more people you add, the more revenue you're going to have. But I think Userflow is an example of that's not the case, right? You can actually grow revenue without hiring people. So in the early days, focus on getting MRR and don't chase VC capital. And in the later days, focus on getting MRR and don't hire people just to hire people.
I love it. I think that's a really good feedback, and it's easy to say, but you actually did it. And I think that's the most important thing. So it is possible. Final question. If people want to get in contact with you, what would be the best way?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So that's where you should just connect with me. I even did a LinkedIn learning course on product-led growth that people can check out. So yeah, pretty active on LinkedIn. Connect with me there.
Cool. What we're going to do is we're going to link to your profile. We're going to link to Userflow, to Cobalt, to the course, also towards the post you said about Nick, and then the Basecamp policy, so people can find all the materials discussed in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on. I love this story and hope to see you soon live on an event.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks, Esben.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this show of the Grow Your B2B SaaS podcast. You made it till the end, so I think we can assume you liked this content. If you did, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you like this content, feel free to reach out if you want to sponsor the show. If you have a specific guest in mind, if you have a specific topic you want us to cover, reach out to me on LinkedIn. More than happy to take a look at it. If you want to know more about Reditus, feel free to reach out as well. But for now, have a great day and good luck growing your B2B SaaS.